Nightline, brought to you by the powerful Lexus ES300.
From National 9 News, this is Nightline with Jim Waley.
Prime Minister backs immigration ban on Olympic boxing boss. Police officer charged with murder over stolen car shooting. And the death of television's Bruce Gyngell. Good evening. The Australian government is sticking to its guns after barring 2 Olympic officials from entering Australia. One of them is an alleged Russian mafia figure. The International Olympic Committee has demanded an explanation, saying the ban may breach Sydney's host city obligations. But Prime Minister Howard has tonight backed the Immigration Minister, saying the action is entirely appropriate.
This is said to be one of the men denied entry, Gafur Rakimov, Uzbekistan Olympic official, international boxing boss, and an alleged ringleader of Russian organised crime.
We are dealing here with serious issues of character.
But the Immigration Minister is giving few details about why he has rejected Rakimov and another unnamed Olympic official from entering Australia.
It's an issue that relates to the safety and security of the Australian community.
It's understood the 2 didn't even make it onto the plane. Their Olympic accreditations denied at home after being cancelled by the federal government, which has ultimate approval of the passes for security reasons. The IOC's not happy.
We have asked for explanations.
It says the government is obliged to rubber stamp its accreditation list.
And this is, of course, part of the host city contract that Australia will honour and respect the Olympic Charter.
But not when it comes to undesirables, according to the Immigration Minister.
Look, you don't negotiate matters of this sort.
The federal government was also very short on detail about whether or not any other IOC or senior sporting officials had been officially knocked back.
Mr Ruddock has done exactly the right thing, and it's quite consistent with the letter of the understanding concluded when Sydney won the bid a few years ago.
IOC President Samaranch plans to send a letter to Prime Minister John Howard seeking an explanation.
I agree with everything Mr Ruddock said, and that's the end of the matter.
Do you accept it's an embarrassment to the IOC?
No.
Why not?
Because no embarrassment.
Michael Usher for Nightline.
Planes disgorged hundreds more athletes from several countries today at Sydney's airport, and among them, though not as happy to be recognised as others, was Olympic gold medalist for the 400 metres, Frenchwoman Marie-Josée Pérec.
A glimpse, literally, of the woman Cathy Freeman hopes to beat in the 400 metres. Marie-Josée Pérec dodged the media today, but she's also avoided rival Freeman for most of the European track season. Pérec's arrival opened the Olympic team floodgates at Sydney Airport, not without its tense moments.
If you want to argue with me, I'll toss you straight out.
It was tracksuit fashion of the nations.
Number 1, Pella, number 1.
The ties, the talented Brazilian soccer team, the huge Russian entourage, and the Czech team who discovered one of their weightlifters failed a drug test and had to return home from Singapore. The pressure of the influx is starting to show on taxi drivers, but from Monday, all Sydney-siders will feel it. Dedicated Olympic lanes on roads come into force, disobedience attracting big fines. From Wednesday, city street parking will be banned and several roads closed, while on the rails, trains will leave every 5 to 10 minutes from Central to Olympic Park for most of the day. Special bus routes will also start.
Sydney's transport changes dramatically next week and people need to very carefully plan their travel.
The Nigerian Olympic team today was grieving the death of a runner who'd been training with the squad, 20-year-old Hagines Anungo. He was hit by a car while apparently trying to cross a street to catch a bus. The 19-year-old driver was treated for shock and cuts. At Sydney's Anzac Memorial, a moving service honoured Olympic athletes who died during wartime.
Let us pay our respects and honour to every single one of these athletes.
500 white lilies were placed in the pool of reflection and a permanent tribute was unveiled. The Olympic torch took the New South Wales South Coast route today. In an act of goodwill, Chris Allen gave his chance to run to young Aborigine Craig Dixon.
One of the easiest decisions I've ever made.
Tonight, the flame is in Bega. Fiona Pye for Nightline.
It's been a bad day for firefighters in southeastern Queensland, crews battling as many as 50 blazes, and there were major evacuations of some areas on Brisbane's outskirts.
A wall of smoke and flames gave panic-stricken Morayfield residents little time to flee.
Really bad. I've lost a cat and I was out for 1 hour and it's gone right through our place.
Police and emergency services rushing to the suburb for a mass evacuation.
Devastating. Totally devastating. We've got to go.
Chaos followed as fires marched towards homes, emergency services rushing from one blaze to the next.
We originally started over on Oaky Flat Road, some 7 to 8 kilometres from here, but the heavy winds have got up and, yeah, it's come through this way pretty heavy.
The speed and ferocity of the flames catching everyone by surprise.
It just flared up in about last half hour. A lot of smoke, and all of a sudden it was right here on us.
Once again, firefighters put their own lives on the line to try and save houses, and once again they knew these fires were deliberately lit.
We just don't know what's in the minds of these people, what they're trying to do.
All of us are in danger and all of our animals, and yeah, they should be shot.
West of Brisbane, 3 barns were destroyed and hectares of crops scorched as fires marched toward homesteads. This building on the Gold Coast was also gutted by flames. Firefighters now bracing for another day of high winds and heat. Carl Stefanovic for Nightline.
A New South Wales policeman has appeared in court charged with murder over the fatal shooting of a man in Sydney on Tuesday night. The constable was freed on $10,000 bail.
26-year-old Constable Reuben Sakey appeared in court just hours after senior police announced he was to be charged with murder.
Edison Berrio, a 22-year-old Woolloomooloo man, was killed in the incident which took place at the intersection of King and Elizabeth Streets, City.
Mr Berrio was sitting in the driver's seat of a stolen car when he was shot in the neck in Sydney's central business district last Tuesday night. It's understood that police had been told the occupants of the car may have been armed. It was later revealed that no weapon was found in the vehicle. Tonight, no one opposed the granting of bail for Constable Sakey. He'll appear in court again next month. Raymond Dale for Nightline.
Nelson Mandela has marked World Reconciliation Day by calling on politicians and business leaders to work for peace. This evening, tens of thousands attended a concert at Melbourne's Colonial Stadium to hear the former South African president's speech. And Mr Mandela saying he's confident differences here in Australia can be resolved.
18,000 people gathered to honour the former South African president this evening, most finding plenty to sing about.
It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me.
A new dawn and day for this first Reconciliation Day. The man himself greeted with a standing ovation lasting more than a minute. After travelling throughout Australia, the feeling apparently was mutual.
I feel like a super heavyweight boxing champion.
His message the same as he's carried throughout his life: peace and understanding and reconciliation of differences.
And it must remain the task of all of us to take reconciliation to its more profound human levels of people living together harmoniously.
It's been a day of warm receptions for Mr Mandela. At lunchtime, a fundraiser for his children's charity. There, an award for his work with kids and a comment on reconciliation in Australia, saying he believed the feelings of Aborigines needed to be and would be addressed soon.
In the near future, the Aborigines themselves will say, we now feel that we are part and parcel of Australia.
For the students who wrote to invite Mr Mandela, a day they'll never forget.
I saw him and I froze. It was incredible.
Mark Barlin for Nightline.
After the break, protest in Melbourne ahead of Economic Forum and the secret submarine being built for Colombia's drug lords. Gina Reinhardt, the daughter of the late Lang Hancock, has finally lost her bitter and costly legal battle with his widow, Rose Porteous, over millions of dollars of the mining magnate's fortune. The High Court in Melbourne today ruled that Mrs. Porteous was entitled to keep a Perth mansion, properties in Florida and Sydney, and a luxury car Hancock gave her before his death, assets valued at up to $50 million. Ms. Reinhardt is believed to have spent almost $10 million on legal action against Mrs. Porteous since her father's death. The first salvo has been fired by anti-capitalists gathering in Melbourne to protest against next week's World Economic Forum. A hardline section of the protest group S11 struck 3 days early, storming the Melbourne headquarters of BHP.
While the vast majority of the group had vowed peaceful demonstrations, tonight's protests by a breakaway fringe have sent an ominous warning to authorities preparing for next week's forum. It's believed the Melbourne arm of the Socialist International Organisation was at the centre of the disruption and may carry the threat of violence similar to that seen in Seattle last year.
There may and always is a fringe element, and our concern is to ensure that local traders are prepared for all contingencies.
Late this evening, the group had moved clear of the CBD, hoping to recruit more supporters for their cause at a Reconciliation Day concert where peacemaker Nelson Mandela was speaking. The inflamed activity came after security precautions were yet again stepped up, Nike boarding up its store, while Crown contractors began constructing the internal wall, which will isolate the casino from the hotel area hosting the international business delegation. Nearby, retailers are also preparing for the worst, Tiffany's closing from Sunday through till Wednesday.
As a precaution, because we are concerned about our staff and customers.
3 days of, lost business profits in a few businesses, or even of, workers who can't go to work, Crown Casino, whatever, is really no loss on what we are fighting for.
Matthew Mackay for Nightline.
20 people are believed killed in fresh fighting in Indonesian West Timor today. The United Nations says the latest clashes happened at the refugee camp of Betun, which was taken over by pro-Indonesian militias overnight. It's not known how many more are wounded or their nationalities. On Wednesday, 3 United Nations staff and at least 6 East Timorese were killed in a militia attack on a UN aid post in West Timor. Indonesia claims to have made 15 arrests over the incident. A high-tech plan to traffic drugs out of Colombia using a full-scale submarine has been foiled by police making a routine cocaine raid. The drug-running sub was being built with the help of the Russian mafia at a hideout more than 300 kilometres from the ocean.
When police raided this warehouse, they expected to find drugs. Instead, they found a 30-metre-long sub under construction for drug trafficking, big enough for 3 crew to transport 200 tonnes of cocaine to Caribbean islands.
A person would have to have a high technical know-how to build or even navigate a vessel such as this one.
No one was inside the warehouse, but police say tools and diagrams indicate where that know-how came from.
It is possible this is connected to Russia. We have the telephone numbers of Russians and we have documents.
Colombian drug lords have tried mini-subs before, and the Russian mafia recently tried to sell them this Cold War relic. But this is the first time the cartels have embarked on such an ambitious construction project, on which they must have spent millions of dollars. Nick McCallum for Nightline.
The Australian Navy, keen to put a more human face on its endeavours, has invited families of crew members to see what their loved ones do for a living. It was a noisy experience.
Dawn on the guided missile frigate HMAS Newcastle, and another average working day for its crew. What was far from average was the audience looking on. Lieutenant Commander David Coyle's mother and sister joined the ship in Sydney last Monday after it spent the past few months on active duty in East Timor and on exercises in the Pacific.
He's always very happy-go-lucky, but this is the serious side of David because he's in charge of the engine room, and sort of being down there and seeing him, give the orders and make it all happen. It's another side of Davey that we don't really see.
You see it with a lot of the other people on board as well. You're just showing your parents and your sister what you do at work, and it's certainly exciting.
My family haven't seen much of me, and they certainly haven't seen what I've been doing, and we've got the same for everyone else in the ship.
So it's really good for family and for friends to see what goes on.
Also on board, some of the Navy's newest recruits having their first taste of life at sea. They appear to have passed the test with flying colours.
Oh, it's wonderful. I've had a great trip and it's been a real eye-opener.
James Talia for Nightline.
In a moment, Bruce Gyngell, a lifetime of television. A sad occasion today for us here at the Nine Network and many others in Australian broadcasting with the death of Bruce Gyngell. His influence spanned the television industry right from its very infancy.
He was, most famously, the first face on Australian television, the night it all began, September 16, 1956.
Good evening and welcome to television.
In those early days, he was frequently on camera.
Name that tune!
Later, his career would centre on management and industry supervision, but his experiences on programmes like this musical quiz show gave him a feel for the television business that would prove valuable on more than one occasion.
What was the name of that song?
For most of the 60s, Gyngell stayed with Channel 9 before moving to Channel 7. But his talents had long been recognised overseas, and in the early 70s he moved to England, hired by Sir Lou Grade to run the British impresario's television interests. There was the occasional cameo return to front of camera, here in Australia marking the transition from black and white to colour. In 1977, he became the founding chairman of the Australian Broadcasting Tribunal, the body charged with formulating the way the local television industry should be controlled and regulated. Gyngell had some very strong views and typically let the world know how he felt.
I am in favour of people having the right of self-determination. I am against excessive bureaucratic control because I think it does lead to enormous arrogance.
He also had his own formula for living. A fitness fanatic, long before it became a universal fad, Bruce Gyngell followed a macrobiotic diet, preparing his own meals. A kitchen takeover gracefully tolerated by his wife and 3 children.
The preparation is the engagement. The food shouldn't touch or mix itself before it gets in the pot. The pot is where the marriage takes place.
His own first marriage was to end. He remarried in 1986. Gyngell also oversaw the establishment of what became SBS television in the early 80s. His life was to follow a familiar pattern until almost the end. He returned to the Nine Network, remaining there until the mid-80s, when once again he was back in London, running TVAM. He found it ailing. He very quickly made it profitable. His pink shirts were a trademark. He believed pastels encouraged creativity. Gyngell again returned to Nine, but in the mid-90s was back in England, running Yorkshire television. With that completed, he remained in London as chairman of the Nine Network's international arm, a position he held until his death. In May, he received the Order of Australia. His final honour, fittingly, was from the Australian television industry, a logie recognising one man's lifetime of commitment and achievement.
It's a great night for me.
It's a big loss to the Australian television industry. In a way, he probably contributed more to the industry than just about any other Australian.
He leaves a distinguished legacy.
And still to come on Nightline, the finance and weekend weather. And in sport, the American Dream Team arrives expecting gold. And another big day for Leighton Hewitt at the US Open.
And there it is. What a thrill for the boys. Unbelievable.